Dear women of Reddit, how would you react if a long-term so told you they fell out of love / sick of the relationship? Devastated, but thank him for being honest and telling me instead of cheating. Totally agree. I would so much rather that someone honestly communicate their feelings, even if they are hard to hear, rather than go behind my back. This happened to me. I was upset for about 2 weeks. Then I got up, brushed myself off, and believed in my own strength. Now I'm happier than I ever have been. If my fiance did this though, I'd be crushed. He's the best person I know, and if I lost him, I'd never forgive myself. I dated someone like your fiance and thought the same thing. I told myself, if I lost him, I'd never date again. But when he decided he didn't want a relationship, I did exactly what you said you did, except I think I brushed myself off even sooner, but was still heartbroken for a good while too underneath it all. I would let them go with my blessing. I don't want anyone to be in a relationship with me for any reason other than that they wholeheartedly want to be. A relationship is not a static state or done deal. It's a daily choice. I want to be someone's daily choice, and they mine. I'd rather be single otherwise. That said, I have had long periods of being single by choice to figure out who I am and what I want out of life. If you're young and have never done this, you really need to develop your values and identity to figure out who you are outside the relationship. Being single isn't scary at all. It's awesome. But I imagine it is scary to someone who has been in a couple from a young age and has not known difference since. I would of course be sad and take the time to mourn. But, knowing me, it would not be a long period of mourning. My guy and I have been together 4.5 years, living together and building a life. However, I have established enough of a life on my own that I know I would be okay if anything ever happened. I used to think it meant I cared less to have so much of my own life, but it actually really helps the relationship and the individual. My guy is my best friend. We will likely make it the long run. But if he ever changed his mind, I can't let my life end with a relationship. That's so cool. I also don't want to be bad poopsid when the unfortunate happens. Knock on wood, I hope it won't. Do you have any tips of how to build a life of my own? I'm a teen in high school. For all my years in high school, I've been with him. I'm scared that one day he might fall out of love. And if that happens, I just need to be ready. Yes, I have been there, too. My first and only other boyfriend and I were together from freshman year of high school, CL, but couple and everything. We only made it 3 months into college as he went away and I had to stay home for community college. Yeah, cheating lol. I sort of started preparing for it too around your age, right before college, because I knew we were not going to the same places. It sucked real bad when it happened. But, again, I bounced back pretty quick because I had school and work and a life to get on with. I will advise that you have your own established friend group. Of course, our friends intermingled. But when it came down to our breakup, I didn't have to worry about anyone needing to pick sides. A lot of my friends were of course all over during college. But that was kind of good because I could do a lot of visiting and meet more people. I also have a lot of hobbies. I play music, do a lot of art, play a lot of sports and exercise, reading/writing, a lot of solo things. I was always like that. Whenever I wasn't with my boyfriend, I was doing something else I liked. So, my advice is to just pick up some things, if you haven't already, that you do as me. Time, or set goals for yourself to be working toward, whether it be with school, work, or something unrelated. Don't not do things just because your boyfriend doesn't like to do them. 2. That is how you lose your identity. Establishing your own life is mainly just not spending every waking moment with them. I live with my now boyfriend, and we still don't do that. I still have all of those hobbies and my own friends. Sorry for a long answer. Just hoping to spark some ideas. Been married 21 years. I really don't know a life without him and him without me, since we're very close, and I know him pretty damn well. If he suddenly wanted out, I'd be devastated, shocked, and I'd likely think something else was going on. Mental instability or something, and I'd obviously work hard to see what's really going on. I would not simply say okay or accept it out of ego. We've built a life together, and that's worth fighting for. I honestly can't even imagine the situation, because we're very close and he's very vocal about his love for me, my being his rock and love of his life, even mentioning several times that he won't survive without me. We've raised children together and gone through horrific losses and challenges, and thankfully, it's only made us grow closer and stronger. So obviously my answer might be different from couples who keep secrets, aren't as tight, or aren't in a healthy space. In with you, I would definitely be sitting down for some long conversations and scheduling appointments with a doctor and marriage counselor. It would take quite a bit for me to believe it was really over. That's sad, but it would mean that we should end the relationship. If they want to try therapy for us first, I would consider it, but I'm not interested in being with someone who isn't in love with me. I want a partnership, and that requires equivalent romantic/loving feelings from both sides of the relationship. I'd be super concerned and would want to have a long conversation about what was going on and how they felt. From that, we would need to work out if the relationship is salvageable, and if so, what do we need to do to save it, and if it's not, then agree an exit plan. I would be devastated and ask why they didn't tell me they were losing feelings before it was too late. I would do anything to try to repair the relationship. Same here, but I would ask why they are sick of the relationship and see if they take it to mean they want to break up. It could be an issue that needs to be discussed. I was on the opposite end and admitted to my ex I was developing feelings for someone else and I was unhappy with our relationship. But that didn't mean I want to end it. Just there was a certain element in our relationship we could both work on. Kudos to you for having the conversation with your ex before deciding it was over. I was in a relationship recently that ended abruptly. My ex refused to communicate on anything with me, why he was unhappy, etc., and still won't talk to anyone he's close to about it. It left me really confused and definitely took a bit of my self-confidence for a while. I'll tell you exactly what I did. He said, "I don't love you anymore. I love X instead. Apostrophe. We were married 4 years. I cried for a little bit. I woke up the next day, cried in my car before work, cried during my lunch break, went to the gym, felt a little better, came back home that night, looked at him, and decided I don't want to be in a loveless marriage. Apostrophe. 2 weeks later, I left him. Filed for divorce 2 months later. Felt a whole weight off my shoulder. I feel better. And now I've met someone who is an even better match for me, and my life is full. Good luck to them and leave. I put 100% into relationships, and if my 100% isn't enough for them, then their standards are too high. Bye." I once fell out of love in a relationship. I think if I was in the other shoes, I'd try to remember that it is not my fault. Of course I'd be devastated, but would think the best is to go our separate ways. After 24 years of marriage, IWOULDBE, DEVRSTATED, especially if I hadn't tuned into anything being amiss, or it being mutual. That being said, I would hope to have the opportunity to understand the reasons, although I appreciate that it couldn't be just the straw that broke the camel's back. I would hope to keep my best friend, even though I might be very unhappy to watch his life change without me. Anyone going through this, I wish you strength and patience. I'd be sad, but would value my partner being upfront and honest about it. I was in those shoes in my past relationships and put an end to them, so I'm well aware it's something that happens and that it's best to communicate about it. Sad, but in the end I know I'd be grateful they didn't drag it out any longer than necessary to preserve my feelings. It'd be upset, but say bye. What else is there to say? No use trying to convince someone otherwise. This has happened to me. I was devastated that they didn't want to even try to work things out. Honestly, it was awful because they just left me questioning what I did wrong or what I could have done better. In reality, it was something completely out of my control, but it took a long time for me to come to terms with it. I would be sad, but things like that can happen. Happened to myself already, so I would be understandable. Better breaking up than staying in an unhappy relationship. I would be very sad, and I think I would end it. In my belief, this cannot be overcome in the relationship. He'd be upset for sure. But I'm of the mindset that it's better to know. Because the sooner you know, the sooner you can attempt to move on. I'd be shocked. Probably a little angry. I want to say I'd offer the opportunity to repair the relationship. But I'd probably just leave. I'm always the one who is less into the relationship anyway. I'd ask why. I want to know why they feel that way. And then I'd want to make a plan to move forward in a way that is beneficial to both of us. I'm not sure I'd be super surprised. Because I'm an anxious / hyper-vigilant person. But if I was surprised by it, I'd be devastated. Heartbroken and devastated because I put effort into my marriage and try to keep my husband feel special and happy and loved. Even if we disagree sometimes. But I'd rather know if that was the case instead of being lied to. Been married 14 years. I would be shocked if my husband said this. But I also would manage to move on. I feel like I'm at a place in my life where my sense of being is less defined by my marriage than it used to be. I love him, love our life together, and want to grow old with him. But we all only have one life to live, and I don't want anyone to spend it being unhappy, even if that means being without him. It's happened back in 2014. I felt panicked, like my world was being ripped from underneath me, and my whole life was going to be turned upside down. My heart was aching, because I loved that person and thought it would be impossible to go forward, because I really didn't want to live a day without him. Every day I cried so much. Couldn't listen to music, because all the songs were about love etc. I just stayed in bed or drank. Fast forward to the present, I'm really glad he did end the relationship, because we weren't right for each other. We had nothing in common. Probably stayed with each other out of convenience and the fact we lived together. I was already deeply unhappy in the relationship anyway, but was too scared to lose him. He was unhappy, too. I got over the heartbreak and I survived. Some things aren't meant to be, but it's hard to look past that dark cloud when it's thrown on you. Had this happened to me 1.5 years ago, definitely still not over that relationship, and I still have a long way to healing. I would beg on my knees for counseling. I'd fight for us if he needed help. But if he wanted to leave, I'd be devastated. Hurt. Probably a bit bitter. I'd appreciate it later, but I'd need time to myself to reflect before I could be grateful for the honesty. This happened to me just a few weeks ago. It came completely out of the blue, and he left me because he said he longer felt an emotional connection with me. It was the most devastating feeling I'd felt in a long time, and the pain I went through after is something I'd never wish upon anyone else. That's not something that happens overnight. I would have seen it coming. We would have had opportunities to turn the tide, but I guess we didn't put in the effort. If we arrived here at this moment, when they are sick of the relationship, then we better break up. It would be for the best. For both of us. I would be sad and regretful for a while. That would be heartbreaking, and I might be in denial for a while, but eventually I would pick myself up and move forward. If I was with someone and they told me their love is gone, I best believe it. There's no way I'm trusting after those words have been spoken. There is no going back at this point. This happened to me about 1.5 years ago. My husband and I have been together for 10 years now and have 2 children. I have always told him, if you want to sleep with someone else, to tell me and not sneak around and hide it. I didn't want to be played like that. One day he is acting really weird. Not really looking at me or talking to me. So I confronted him. He admitted that he just wasn't happy, and he has been struggling with how to tell me, and has been thinking a lot about cheating on me, but assured me hadn't, because I had always said to just talk to me first. I was devastated. It took us some time, but it honestly helped our relationship. We are much more open about what we need from each other, and can talk about when we feel we are falling into old patterns. It was a big wake-up call for both us. This happened to me about 1.5 years ago. My husband and I have been together for 10 years now and have 2 children. I have always told him, if you want to sleep with someone else, to tell me and not sneak around and hide it. I didn't want to be played like that. One day he is acting really weird, not really looking at me or talking to me. So I confronted him. He admitted that he just wasn't happy and he has been struggling with how to tell me and has been thinking a lot about cheating on me, but assured me hadn't because I had always said to just talk to me first. I was devastated. It took us some time, but it honestly helped our relationship. We are much more open about what we need from each other and can talk about when we feel we are falling into old patterns. It was a big wake up call for both us. It's happened twice. Twas devastating. Now I'm over it, and I'm a much stronger / independent person than before. I realize now only my ego was severely bruised. I would let us fall in love again. I would want to do fun things together like go to the beach, go hiking. If it were me and my partner, I would think we just need to reconnect on a deeper level. Love never fails. I've already had a so do that, but then later admit that they never really loved me and were just using me. It sucked. I was a little upset. I listened to sad music for a couple hours and moved on because I knew it wasn't real. However, later I realized I should have been mad. I would have probably figured it out before they told me. In like a human lie detector, I'd be like, okay, let's take a break then. If we feel the same in 2 weeks / a month, then it's not worth forcing. But really it's hard to tell. Logically that's what I would do. But there are so many ambiguous factors like how do I feel about them when they say this? Have they been poop alerting up to it? Usually I'm the one who gets bored first. Depends on the relationship. With my ex I think we both stopped being happy. So if he told me he fell out of love with me, I would have been relieved. With my boyfriend I'm so happy with him. And I feel so confident in our relationship and our love for each other. So yeah, if he told me he didn't love me anymore I would be blindsided, and I think that would absolutely break me. I'd be devastated, but also confused how it got to that point without me knowing. My so and I have only been together 3 years. But we have an agreement to talk about problems rather than letting them fester. And we frequently check in with each other to make sure we're happy and fulfilling the other person's needs. Once one person has fallen out of love, it might be too late to save the relationship. But I believe it can be possible in many, though not all, situations to reverse the feelings. If you start to feel them coming on and act early, this may require therapy and or one or both partners making a big change. My hope for my relationship is that if either of us began to feel like we were falling out of move, we'd tell the other person we're struggling, get help, and take steps to correct it. If that didn't work, then at least things could end, hopefully amicably, with us knowing we tried everything we could. I'd be thrilled to have a guy so honest and self-aware. Most of the time when this happens, they still keep you around for one reason or another. I think relationships that are longer term should have check-in conversations every few months, where you can openly talk about how things are going, general problems, etc. Relationships do not have to be forever. I would rather it end at a reasonable time instead of drag on with one or both being unhappy and suffering. I think it would hurt, but I'd ultimately chuckle at it, then immediately start planning my next move. I'd suggest remaining roommates for a year. If he wanted a divorce for financial reasons, then we'd discuss what to do with our dog. We'd probably remain friends and he's get insanely jealous of whoever I dated and magically fall in love with me again, lol. I'm fairly pragmatic about this kind of stuff, and while I love my husband and he's worth marriage, I don't like marriage in general. It's like, I hate owning pets, but I love my dog. This happened to me. He basically told me he was staying with me until he found someone better that he could dump me for. I was heartbroken at first, but then furious that he'd been using me like that for so long. This came at the end of a 3-year relationship. In hindsight, I'm also embarrassed when I think of how poorly I allowed him to treat me and how I used to beg him for the absolute bare minimum. I'm working on forgiving myself now, but it's not always easy. Ask and accept their feelings to leave the relationship and take time to work on myself to improve for future relationships. So this actually happened to me. My husband thought he fell out of love with me. We separated for a bit over a year. He even saw someone else during that time. I was absolutely crushed. I was a mess for a few months. I threw myself into friendships. I went out to bars and clubs with friends. Did day trips to the beach. I had a single friend with many children and sort of threw myself into that busy family. I went on trips with them, went to the kids' soccer games, etc. I also started exercising a lot. I was going to yoga 5 to 7 times a week. I started playing ball hockey. I looked amazing. I think a lot of it was spending time at home was hard. We were still living together for most of this time. Being out of the house was easier than being there alone. I'd be sad, but you can't make someone fall back in love. If I had been with them for a long time, I'd be bummed. But there are plenty of people out there for me. It's time to untangle our lives and move on. I divorced him. We were married less than a year, together for 4, and he claimed the military changed him. I was young then, but in my current relationship I think I would handle differently. I would be absolutely gutted. I have had this happen, except I was on the other end of it. I broke up with my fiancé after 5 years together. I felt so horrible about it, but I know it was the right decision. In the end, if they fell out of love it was probably the best, and you now have the opportunity to find someone who will truly appreciate you. I would be sad, but would appreciate the radical honesty and say you're free to leave, because this isn't a prison of love. You're free to go at any time just as I am. This currently happened to me. Been knowing each other for 7 years. Married for almost 3 years, and suddenly out of nowhere he doesn't love me anymore. I was devastated, and honestly I didn't know how I was going to get through it. But fast forward to almost a month now since he left, and I'm actually really liking it. Liking it so much, that I'm a bit worried on how fast I'm feeling happy. I'm more focused on my studies, meeting/hanging out /new friends, picking up new hobbies, and focusing on myself. Obviously I have sad moments, but I feel good and happy. As a person who has been hurt and has trust issues and who is easily replaceable, I can tell you this is an actual fear. The fear of giving your whole heart too easily, knowing it's as fragile as glass. Giving it to someone who you love for everything they are and will be, while knowing that something this good can't possibly last this long. Like any other person I would be sad and angry. I'd probably blame myself first and question what went wrong. At some point I would accept the truth that if he wasn't willing to put the effort and fight for our relationship, it's not worth it. It wasn't a waste of time, it was a lesson to be learned. As much as I hope the one I love is my forever person, no one knows. Whatever the outcome is, I'm happy in this moment and that's all that matters to me. Let yourself fall, but remember to pick yourself up again. Leave the relationship. At this point, there's nothing you can do but accept it and move on. No point fighting for something that's not there anymore. I would be devastated, but at the same time there would be nothing that I can do, so I would start making arrangements to move out as soon as possible. Might be upset, but fine, I'd rather be on my own than with someone who didn't love me. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.
Would you stay with me if the world was ending?